Today on Trucks. Okay, gearheads, Stacey's busting to open the toy box and let you play with some of his favorite cool tools. And he's throwing in a little technique on how to use them. Then we'll reach for new heights as we check out one monster of a Chevy. That's all today on Trucks.
Welcome to Trucks. As you can see, I have got a killer truck to show you today. And later on in the show, I'm going to take you all over this thing, show you why it's so trick and why it's worth over $100,000. But first, I'm going to show you the one thing that makes any gearhead, young or old, male or female, absolutely drool. And it's not Baywatch. I'm talking about tools. Yeah, tools. Without them, we'd all be back in the dark ages. The big question is, what kind of tools are out there to build stuff like this? And more importantly, when and how do you use them? Well, today is the day to answer some of those questions for you. The first thing that everybody needs to have, if you're even remotely interested in working on your own vehicle, is a quality set of hand tools and some place to keep them. Now, all my hand tools, my ratchets, my sockets, my wrenches, screwdrivers, etc., all come from Mac, and I keep them here in my Mac boxes. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to have the room to have a big workstation like the Maximizer. But the good news is Mac's got all kinds of choices, different size boxes, so you've got something to choose from for your budget and your application. Now, am I saying that everybody should just run right out and buy Mac tools? Well, let me put it to you like this. If you spend a lot of time with your tools, you need to invest in a professional quality set of tools. Now, I know they're not cheap, but you get what you pay for. Now, if you only use your tools once in a while, rarely ever pick them up, well, you might be able to get by with some cheap tools, but let me warn you of this. If you buy some cheap tools and you expect to get some good use out of them, you're going to end up cussing them and finally throwing them away and buying something like that anyway. So you might as well get the good stuff to start with. Next, we're going to look at some way to get your vehicle up in the air, and that means a floor jack. Now, those $69 ones that you pick up at the local factory outlet, well, they're okay as long as you're going to use the jack once in a while. If you're going to use it a lot, well, you need to spend a few $100 and pick up something nice that's going to last you a lifetime, like this all-aluminum zip jack that we got from Zipper Motors. Now, this thing goes to full extension in just 9 pumps, only weighs 35 pounds, rolls around very easily, and as you can see, this thing is cool looking. Of course, with the vehicle up in the air, well, it'd be nice to be able to move it around, and that is where a set of dollies is really going to be nice, and you can pick those up just about anywhere. Now, if you want something a little slicker than that, a little more cool, well, Griot's Garage has got these things called the Go Jacks. Now, these combine a jack and a dolly, and they allow you just to jack the vehicle up and then roll it around with just one tool. All right, now it is time for the big stuff, and the one area where a lot of people get a little lost, and that is with welders. Do you need a MIG? Do you need a TIG? MIG, TIG, which one? Well, without a doubt, the cheapest and the easiest to learn is the MIG, and that should be the first welder that you buy. They're very versatile, and I've shown a lot of tips on how to use these properly in past shows. Now, the TIG, or heliarcing, well, that is a whole different animal. It takes a lot of skill, a lot of practice to be able to do this right. So, today I'm going to show you how to set up this machine and to show you some tips and techniques on how to do this properly. Now, TIG stands for tungsten inert gas. This gives you the ability to weld aluminum, magnesium, stainless steel, super thin metal, shoot, you name it. Pretty much can weld it with a TIG welder. So, this is how to set up the machine. You have the torch, which you hold in one hand. Then you have the grounding cable that you connect to the work. Then you have a tungsten that slides down inside the torch. You have argon shielding gas that flows down through the torch and not only cools the tip of the tungsten, but also keeps the weld from getting contaminated. Then, in your free hand, you have a filler rod On top of that, you have a foot controller that allows you to control the amperage of the machine while you're welding. So you're using both hands, one foot, and both eyes to make this thing work properly. Okay, the first thing you need to do is put the proper tip on the tungsten for the type of material you're going to be welding. Now for steel or stainless steel, you need a nice sharp pencil type tip that you grind lengthwise, starting at the tip, going down the body of the tungsten. Now if you try to do it sideways like this, you're going to put marks in that tip, and that's going to cause the arc to scatter. You don't want that. With the tip of the tungsten taken care of, now take your torch, slide that tungsten down in there. The tip should stick out anywhere from 1/8 to about 3/16 of an inch. Then set your amperage for the thickness of steel you're going to weld. Turn on your gas, grab a filler rod, and that takes care of the setup of a TIG machine. It's also time for a break, but after the break, we're going to reveal to you some secrets to the TIG welding process, only on trucks.
After the break, Stacey's turning up the heat with a few pointers on the subtle art of TIG welding. And later, scared of big green monsters? Well, don't worry, you won't find this one under your bed.
Welcome back to Trucks. We are showing you some cool tools, and we are right in the middle of showing you welders, TIG welders to be exact. Now, I've already showed you the basic setup of the machine, so now I'm going to show you what's involved in the TIG process. Now, it's almost impossible to see what's going on if you don't have a mask on. So, I'm going to demonstrate this process with everything cold. Okay, hold the torch like a pencil, bring it down to about 1/8 of an inch from the surface. Now, don't be afraid to let this nozzle lean against the work, because that'll kind of brace you and keep your distance where it needs to be. Now, under no circumstances do you ever touch that tungsten to the metal or to the filler rod. Now, if you do that, well, you're going to have to take the tungsten back out, take it back over to the grinder, and put another tip on it. Everything about TIG welding is about cleanliness. Once you've established the arc, develop the weld puddle, and then work your way down the seam. Then take a filler rod, dab it in the leading edge of the puddle. Now, you don't want to get up under the tungsten, it'll just melt and dribble away. Just keep it out on the leading edge and then slowly fill up the gap with the weld. Now, this obviously is where the feel comes in, because you don't need filler all the time. Just need to dab it in there. As you see, you need to build the weld puddle. All right, now that you know basically what you're supposed to do, we're going to show you what it looks like when you do it. Notice your control comes in your fingers and your wrist, not in your wrist, elbow, and shoulder like you do with the MIG. Also, right in the middle of all this, you're controlling the temperature of the machine with the foot controller. But remember, the pedal only controls what you got the machine dialed into. So, if you need more heat, well, you're going to have to turn up the machine. Obviously, this is a very quick overview of the TIG welding process. As you can see, there is a lot of stuff going on. But this is something you can learn to do. If you've got any kind of hand-eye coordination at all, and I know you do, you just have to be committed to spending some time learning the skill. This is definitely a skill. And the biggest thing you got to know is you got to understand the welding process. You got to know when you're too hot, you're too cold, when you need to add filler. You've got to understand that process. Now, is TIG welding for everybody? No. If you're just a hobbyist, or even if you're doing a hardcore restoration like the old Bronco here, TIG welders are not good for filling gaps or working on old rusty metal that's not in pristine condition. A MIG is better suited for that. But if you do a lot of fabrication, welding stainless steel or aluminum, and you need real nice, neat, precise welds, or if you're doing some body work where you need soft welds where you can work them with a body hammer, a TIG is the way to go.
When Trucks returns, it takes more than Stacey's big old biceps to bend metal tubing. But don't worry, he's got the tool for that too.
Yeah.
That's next.
Of course, the Tube Shark.
Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back to Trucks, where we are showing you some cool tools and techniques so you can take your truck project from just a pile of parts and turn it into something that actually runs and drives and, well, you're proud of. Now, one tool that almost every gearhead just dreams of owning is a tubing bender. Man, you can make bumpers and roll bars and complete tube chassis. Heck, you're limited only by your imagination. Well, the biggest problem with most tubing benders is they're big. They'll take up half your shop. And they're expensive. I'm talking 5 to 10 grand or more expensive. Well, I've got a surprise for you. This is called the Tube Shark. It's made by ISCO. This is a portable hydraulic tubing bender. It'll bend round and square tubing. It folds up into this little package here so you can tuck it up against the wall. And this is a heck of a deal at around 3,000 bucks. Let me show you how this thing works. Roll the Tube Shark into position. Drop the legs and pin them in place. Then raise the bending head. Next, connect your hydraulic line. Follow that with the air supply. And you are ready to bend some tubing. Now, you can see why they call this thing the Tube Shark. It's got all these little dorsal fins that go around it. Now, those are not just for looks. Those actually have a purpose. We're going to show you what they do here in a minute. But the way this thing works, you have your forming die here. Then back in the back, you have the feed shoe. Then up here in front, you've got the forming shoe. Now, all these pieces match. You can see we are set up to bend 1.5 inch round tubing. So that's what we're going to stick in there. With the tubing in place, just hit the pedal. Now, notice how the tubing is pulled over the forming die with the forming shoe, and it all feeds through the machine through the feed shoe. Now, down here you have the bending gauge. Now, this shows you the degree of bend you're making in the tubing, and those numbers correspond with these numbers on these dorsal fins. I told you that they had a use. Now, each fin gives you 54 degrees of bend. So, if you reach the end of the ram, and you still need more bend, well, you retract the ram to the next numbered dorsal fin. Then continue your bend using the next set of numbers down on the gauge. See? It's that simple. All right. Of course, you have some options with the Tube Shark. You can get dies and shoes to bend round tubing anywhere from 1/2 inch all the way up to 2 inches in diameter. But it just doesn't do round tubing. Like I said before, it also does square tubing. As you probably know, this stuff does not like to bend. So the dies and shoes look a little different for that. Now, the biggest thing that ISCO has done, though, with the Tube Shark is take a professional quality tool and make it affordable to the average guy. Heck, it looks good, too. It looks like a little shark. I'll see you after this.
When we come back, it's a 96 Monster Chevy that's not so jolly, but it certainly is green and giant.
In the world of custom trucks, every once in a while, one comes along that you can literally spend hours looking at and never see all the custom touches. Well, Brian Taylor decided he was going to build a truck like that. And since Brian's from Texas, and size matters in Texas, at least when you're talking about your truck, Brian decided he was going to build a monster-style truck, but it had to be functional. So, after about 2.5 years of labor and a lot of help from his friend Jeff Culler, this is what rolled out of the shop. Whoa! first thing that grabs your attention is the full tube chassis that this thing sits on and the massive suspension and axles that holds it all up. The axles are huge Dana 70s, custom made by Dynatrac, and they're packed with 456 gears. Those are held in place with a hand-built, triangulated 4-link setup, and you even have special cages to protect the drive shafts. Of course, the drive shafts themselves are connected to an SGS drop center transfer case that drops vertical to keep the drive shaft angles down, like a monster truck. Another monster truck item is the huge nitro shocks that hold this thing up in the air, and they work in conjunction with the NASCAR Super Speedway sway bars. This all adds up to 14 inches of suspension travel. In the back, the tube chassis continues and holds dual batteries and a fuel tank. The rear fiberglass fenders are held in place by their own custom framework and supports, and of course they were worked and smoothed to perfection before being shot with flawless green paint. The cab, believe it or not, is a stock steel 96 Chevy cab with stock opening doors and power windows. But the rest of the interior, well, that's a whole different matter. The floor, firewall, and dash were all hand formed in metal, and then a custom gauge cluster was built for the dash. The full roll cage is so well built and subtle that you don't even hardly notice it's there. The racing seats and custom steering column give you a place to sit and something to hold on to when you hammer the throttle. That brings us to the engine. And it's no little thing either. Not for Brian. You have a massive 540 cube big block Chevy punching out over 600 horsepower. Man, that's almost as big as our 572. Almost. Of course, everything for this engine was custom made. All the mounts, the tube chassis that holds it, heck, even the headers were hand built. And the amount of hours that went into just making those is mind-boggling. The best part is, when you step down on the pedal to put this thing in motion, you'll quickly find this is no trailer queen. And this whole truck really works well together. Oh yeah! Well, like I said earlier, Brian started out 2.5 years ago to build a really big truck, even by Texas standards. And what he ended up with was not only a truck big in stature, but in detail and also in function. Wow, what a combination. And what a big first step.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
If you're driving a truck with a diesel engine, whether it's the GM Duramax or the Ford PowerStroke or the Dodge Cummins, well, you probably know that opening up the exhaust system is one of the best ways to get some good power out of those engines. Well, Gale Banks Engineering has taken that to the max in what they're calling the monster exhaust systems. Now, these feature huge 4-inch pre-bent stainless steel pipes. All the hangers are welded right in place, so these just fit in the stock locations. The muffler is a big flow-through design, so you have a great sound and, of course, a great flow. And finishing it all off is a big 5-inch polished tip to keep everything looking good. Now, the big surprise here, though, is not in the size of the components, it's how small the price is. These kits start at around $530. If you're building a high-performance engine, no matter if you're going to use nitrous or a supercharger, a turbo, heck, whatever, the first thing that you need to invest your money in is in a quality set of heads, because without those, these will never reach their full potential. Well, Jegs has decided to help you out with that with this awesome set of aluminum cylinder heads for the small block Chevy. Now, these feature huge 205 intake valves, 160 exhaust valves, springs, retainers, screw-in studs, guide plates, heck, everything you'd want or need to actually bolt these things on and go out and start smoking some tires. Now, the price is pretty smoking too. A set like this, fully dressed, comes in at just under $1,200. If you drive a truck or an SUV, chances are you have tried to back one of those things up at night and found that you can't see squat. Well, Cruiser Stainless has got the answer for that problem in the White Knight Auxiliary Rear Light Kit. Now, this thing slides right into your receiver hitch or mounts below the bumper and gives you two 55-watt high-output lights so you can really see what's going on behind you. Now, you can also wire this thing up to come on with your backup lights, manually, or both. Now, the best part is, this will not put you in the poorhouse. Cruiser Stainless sells these for around 89 bucks each.
Next week on Trucks, Stacey's got an awesome leather upgrade for your tired old cloth seats. And believe it or not, it's easy. And if that's not enough, he'll throw in a kickin' entertainment center. But don't get too comfortable, because later Stacey's taking you wheeling in this wild Jeep TJ. That's all next week on Trucks. For a VHS copy of today's show, call toll-free 1-877-853-7260. Show videos are just $12.95 plus shipping and handling. Trucks is an RTM production.